Alright, so I'm going on to the practice on page 12. This is some more applications of solving using square roots. So we have the area of a square is 400 inches. Write an equation you can use to find the side length x of the square. Then solve the equation. Are all solutions viable? Explain your reasoning. So we have our side length x. Okay. We're trying to relate that to the area of the square, 400 square inches. So you know that the area of a square is equal to the side length squared. So if x is our side length, then the area would be equal to x squared. And what is our area? Our area is 400 square inches. So if our side length is x, then the square of x is 400. In our next step, take the square root of both sides. X would then be equal to plus or minus the square root of 400. Maybe I'll go through this one. If you do 400, you do 4 times 100, turn that into 2 and 2. Maybe we turn that into 25 and 4. Turn that into 2 and 2. Turn that into 5 and 5. Square root 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 5 times 5. We have a pair of 2's, pair of 2's, pair of 5. So we can pull everything out of the radical. We're left with 2 times 2 times 5, which is 4 times 5, which is 20. So x is equal to plus or minus 20. But in reality, the side length is 20 inches. Doesn't make sense to have a side length of negative 20 inches, so only the positive solution is viable. Okay. So I think it's Mateos. I'm not sure. Let me know if you know how that is supposed to be pronounced. But they tripped and knocked his cell phone off the side of a bridge. He was 320 feet above the water. The pathway that the cell phone fell can be modeled by the equation h is equal to negative 16t squared plus 320. Okay, so this poor guy lost his phone over the side of a bridge. And so we want to think about when will it hit the water? Well, if the bridge is 320 feet above the water, then the water must be at h is equal to 0. So we want to figure out at what time will h be equal to 0. We can put 0 in for h in our height equation, and then we just need to solve for h. My pencil has stopped working. There we go. So negative 320. So negative 320 is equal to negative 16t squared. Divide by negative 16, divide by negative 16, we get t squared is equal to positive 20. And then t will be equal to plus or minus the square root of 20. That's equal to plus or minus 2 roots of 5. If you want to do prime factorization to get that, you can. And this, if you plug that into your calculator and get a decimal, is roughly 4.5 seconds. So the phone will hit the water at 4.5 seconds. Or we'll hit the water, let's just say 4.5 seconds after it is knocked off the bridge. All right, a penny is dropped off the Empire State Building, which is 12,500 feet tall. The penny's pathway can be modeled by the equation h of t, or h is equal to negative 16t squared plus 250. How long will it take the penny to strike a 6-foot tall person? All right, so we still have our same sort of function here, but there's a difference between this problem and the previous two. And just this one and the ones on the last page, I guess. Over here, we're talking about how long will it take until it hits the water, which would be analogous to hitting the ground here. But we're not looking for when it hits the ground. We're looking for when it hits a 6-foot tall person. So if it starts at 1,250 feet, what does the height have to be to hit a 6-foot tall person? Well, h has to be 6, right? We start at 1,250 feet. It needs to fall until h is equal to 6. So that would look like h is equal to negative 16t squared plus 1250. That means that 6 has to be equal to negative 16t squared plus 1250. We would subtract 1250 from each side. You get negative 16t squared is equal to negative 1244. And we're going to divide by negative 16, divide by negative 16. T squared is equal to, let's see, I don't actually have a calculator. So let me see if I can do this. So 160, yeah, it'll be faster to do it on a calculator. Give me 1 second. 1244 divided by 16. Okay, so that gives us 75, or 77.75. Yep, which then means, let me double check my work there. Put in the calculator too and make sure I'm not wrong. Yep, that sounds about right. We'll do plus or minus. Um, so t would then be equal to plus or minus the square root of 77.75. And if you enter that into your calculator, you're going to get that t is equal to plus or minus 8.82 seconds. Which then means that the penny will hit the person 8.82 seconds after it is dropped. Okay. Which of the following is a solution to the equation 2x squared minus 4 is equal to x squared? Well, the first thing I see here is we have an x squared here and we have an x squared here. So there's nothing stopping us from combining like terms. So I'm going to subtract x squared from this side and subtract x squared from this side. 2x squared minus x squared will give me x squared. That would be x squared minus 4 is equal to 0, because these two would cancel out. Next, we can add 4 to both sides, and we get x squared is equal to 4, which means x is equal to plus or minus 2. I see 2 there, and I'm going to select that as the answer. Now we have a rectangular volleyball court, has an area of 162 square meters. If the length of the court is twice its width, what is the area of the court in meters? All right, so we have two equations. Area is equal to 162 meters squared, and the length of the court, which I'm going to denote by an L, is equal to twice the width. Now, if we want to think about this, if we wanted to find the area of any rectangle, we have to multiply length times width. And here, we know that the length is twice the width, right? 2 times the width, double the width. So if we substitute in 2w for L, then get A is equal to 2 times W, right? Because that's what L is equal to, times W. Hopefully it's familiar that the area of the rectangle is length times width. And that means that the area is equal to 2W squared, where W is the width. And then if we know that our area is 162 square meters, then 162 has to be equal to 2W squared. You can solve this by dividing both sides by 2, and you get that W squared is equal to 81, or W is equal to plus or minus 9. And I see 9 over here, so that's what I'm going to select. And just be careful, make sure it's looking for the width, which it is, But in general, with all of these problems, you want to make sure that you're keeping track of your variables, or that you are circling the variable that they are asking for. So if this were asking for length, well, the length is twice the width, so the length would be 18. But it's asking for the width, so we give it the width. Just keep track of your variables.